probably got it now. You probably have it now, sweetie, on your phone. It's 1:45. Okay, thank you, lovely. Well, thank you so much for tuning into this online concert. We're eager to share some of our work from this current term. The Grinnell Singers were split in two this term, with roughly half the choir on campus and half the choir off campus. So the on-campus singers met with masks and shields 10 feet apart for half-hour sessions in the rotunda of the Bucksbaum Center for the Arts. In the last couple of weeks, as the restrictions have begun to ease somewhat, we received permission to record somewhat closer together in Sebring Lewis Hall while wearing masks. Our concert tonight includes 4 pieces that we recorded in this way, plus one bonus work composed by a member of the choir, Jerry Lee. Jerry Lee's Sanctus will be performed by the First Readings Choir, which is a professional ensemble from the Twin Cities that specializes in performing newly written choral music. In addition to these pieces, we also created 2 other recordings, but they're still being edited, so we'll release them later. So we'll kick off the concert with the lovely piece Ötul by the Estonian composer Pärt Uusberg. The text captures a lovely moment spent at sunset in nature. The poet adds their own song to the sounds of nature, and the poem ends with the image of the song paddling away like a canoe into the distance, which in Estonian is the lovely phrase "Sõuab kaugele." For this piece, we've added in a couple of the off-campus singers, Joshua Turner and Che Yu, who join in virtually. So Che Yu sent in her video from South Korea, and Joshua sent his in from Bettendorf, Iowa. All right, so here is Ötul by Pärt Uusberg.
Amen.
The story behind the next piece is a remarkable and dramatic one. Claudio Monteverdi had composed the opera Arianna, and the star role was to be played by the 18-year-old singer Caterina Martinelli. But Martinelli tragically died from smallpox shortly before the premiere of the opera. This was an incredibly intense and difficult time for Monteverdi. A year earlier, in 1607, his wife had died, leaving behind 2 young sons. Monteverdi later wrote about the great suffering he underwent during that time, and he even says that he considered ending his own life while writing the opera Arianna. The madrigal is the last movement of a 6-movement piece called Tears of the Lover at the Tomb of His Beloved. The poem is in the form of a sestina, which is a peculiar poetical pattern that repeats the same words at the end of each line in each stanza. Those words here are tomba, cielo, terra, seno, foco, pianto, glauco, which translates to tomb, sky, earth, heart or breast, fire, tears, and the proper name glauco. It was commissioned by the Duke Vincenzo Gonzaga as a tribute to the young singer who had died. I'm sure you'll be able to hear the intense grief that Monteverdi pours into this madrigal. The double grief that Monteverdi experienced in losing first his wife, then this talented young singer, is so palpably reflected in the harmonic shifts, the movements from major to minor, and the piercing high notes that keen away, repeating the lover's name, O Corina. The main climax is built using a technique that is similar to the technique that works so well for Handel in his Hallelujah chorus. You know, the spot where the repeated notes that move stepwise upward. King of Kings, dun, 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 King of Kings, and we build to this incredible climax. But here, that same technique, the increasing intensity in this case, is one of grief rather than of joy. Here is the final portion of Monteverdi's Tears of the Lover at the Tomb of the Beloved.
Illumia nobis Deo,
There we go. I'm so sorry about that little slip of the mouse. It interrupted it for a moment there. So we had such a fine collection of basses and tenors on campus this term that we were able to do this beautiful 8-part setting of the spiritual Steal Away by Stacy Gibbs. The Steal Away spiritual has such a rich background to it. The song is actually associated with Nat Turner, who led a slave rebellion in 1831. And Nat Turner said that he, quote, heard a loud noise in the heavens while he was working in the field as an enslaved person. And he said that, quote, the Spirit instantly appeared to me and said, the serpent was loosened, and Christ had laid down the yoke he had borne for the sins of men, and that I should take it on and fight against the serpent. For the time was fast approaching when the first should be last and the last should be first. And in the song, end of the quotation, in the song, the line, my Lord, he calls me by the thunder, the trumpet sounds within my soul, might be linked to that conversion experience which led Nat Turner eventually to take that courageous step to stand up against slavery. And Steal Away is no doubt partly a code referring to an attempt to escape slavery, and was probably used at various times as a form of secret communication. There's so many layers of meaning to this text and so many different ways in which we can connect to it. So here then is Steal Away by Stacy Gibbs.
Stay
And the solo, the beautiful solo there was done by Noah Burgess. And now we'll move on to an interview with our composer of the next piece, Jerry Lee. I have Jerry Lee here to talk about the choral mass that he wrote. We'll be listening to one of the movements. There are 5 movements, and we'll listen to one of them. And the piece in total lasts about a half hour. And I've worked with a lot of composition students over the years, but none of them have taken the initiative to compose a work on this scale. It's a great achievement, and I've invited Jerry here to talk about his piece. So congratulations, Jerry, on this achievement.
Thank you, John. Couldn't have done that without you.
Well, first off, I'd like to ask, what were some of the challenges you faced in tackling this large scale piece?
So, yeah, this is a really lengthy project at first. So, I started off in January 2020 and finished the last note on, I guess, in August 2020. So, the stamina that's required to kind of going through the entire project is one of the challenges.
Yes, exactly.
And I personally, I do get writer's block often, and a lot of the pieces were composed through, I guess, bursts of progress, and otherwise it'd be just being kind of staring at the blank page, figure out what ideas to put on there, and how to get new ideas and inspirations from the surroundings.
Well, speaking of inspiration, so I can hear a number of influences in the piece. So can you talk about what pieces were sort of in the air and in your mind that influenced you in writing this piece?
I think that's mostly what we have been singing in the choir. So, for one, definitely Mozart. I had been trying to kind of actively learning or sort of copying from Mozart and trying to bring some of the ideas back into my work. And one more composer would be Martin. We did the Missa Brevis from Martin in the choir, and although we only did the Kyrie movement, I was just going through like the rest of the movement and trying to study how Martin uses his ideas into and incorporating that into his work. You can definitely find traces of Martin's work in my piece.
Oh, how about Barber? Did that influence you?
Oh yes, definitely. So one of the movement on your stay, I was trying to kind of putting what Barber kind of in a Barber style, but with a different kind of progression and harmonics uh, language of harmony. And I think one of the successful part of it is that the structural pattern of Barber really turned out well and kind of easy to be put into my work. But the difficulty would be, I guess, to get the general idea of Barber creating the continuum of the sound.
Yeah, you can definitely tell the influence, but it has your own particular stamp to it. Similarly, the piece we're going to listen to, the Sanctus from your Missa Brevis, Jerry, has those who are familiar with the Frank Martin Mass for Double Choir that you mentioned will recognize certain patterns and ways of thinking in that Sanctus. It's just wonderful to see the ideas of these other composers coming out and being realized in new ways in your music. Um, so, so we just really need to celebrate this. Oh, I want to mention also that um, we were able to hire the First Readings Choir from the Twin Cities. Under COVID, they couldn't do it as a normal choir, so it was done as virtual choir technique. Each person submitting their own audio. What we're going to listen to is performance by First Readings, conducted by David Moore. And so, without further ado, let's listen to the Sanctus from Jerry Lee's Missa Brevis. All right, so we'll finish up our concert with a piece by Nico Muhly. Nico Muhly was the youngest composer to be commissioned by the Metropolitan Opera of New York to write an opera. He's quite a wonderful composer, and he's setting a text by Longfellow. It's such a lovely text. I just want to put it in the air here by reciting it. It's a beautiful poem. Out of the bosom of the air, out of the cloud folds of her garment shaken, over the woodlands brown and bare, over the harvest fields forsaken, silent and soft and slow, descends the snow. Even as our cloudy fancies take suddenly shape in some divine expression, even as the troubled heart doth make in the white countenance confession, the troubled sky reveals the grief it feels. This is the poem of the air, slowly in silent syllables recorded. This is the secret of despair, long in its quiet bosom hoarded, now whispered and revealed to wood and field. I love how that piece begins with just a preposition, out, evoking the mystery of snow appearing out of the air, and then ends with another preposition, over. Such an unusual approach. I want to thank the Grinnell Singers for all your great work, all their great work this semester, and showing up and wearing these really uncomfortable masks and a shield and sitting far apart for these rehearsals to try to put together the music. So I'm so indebted and so much appreciate all your efforts. All right, thank you so much for listening. Really appreciate your tuning in.